The rain was coming down in sheets the night I found out. Not a gentle, cleansing rain, but the kind that felt like the sky itself was weeping. John, age 44, stood there, soaked to the bone, staring at the motel room door number 14. It might as well have been a portal to hell. My life with Amanda, 41, had always been predictable, comfortable. We lived in a quiet suburb of Denver, Colorado, in a house with a white picket fence and a golden retriever named Max. We had been married for 17 years. No kids by choice. Amanda worked as a marketing manager and I was a software engineer. We had our routines, our favorite restaurants, our annual vacations to the beach. I thought we were happy. I really did, but lately things had been off. Amanda had been distant, preoccupied. She was always on her phone, hiding the screen when I came near. She started going out more with the girls, which was fine, except she never used to go out much at all. When I asked her about it, she would brush it off, saying I was being paranoid. "You're just imagining things, John," she'd say, her eyes darting away from mine. "Everything is fine." It wasn't fine. I could feel it in my gut. Something was terribly wrong. My suspicion started innocently enough. A lipstick stain on the collar of her blouse that wasn't mine. A lingering scent of men's cologne in the air after she'd been out. A text message that flashed across her screen one night, "Can't wait to see you," with no name attached. I tried to talk to her about it, to voice my concerns, but she always shut me down. She accused me of being insecure, controlling, even crazy. "You're suffocating me, John," she said once, her voice laced with anger. I need space, so I gave her space. Maybe too much space. I started staying late at the office, working on a new project. Anything to avoid the tension at home. But the more I avoided it, the worse it got. The silence between us grew thicker, heavier, like a suffocating blanket. Then came the phone call. It was an anonymous tip, a woman's voice, low and urgent. "Your wife is having an affair," she whispered. "She's meeting him tonight at the Sunset Motel. Room 14." I almost dismissed it as a prank, someone trying to stir up trouble, but the seed of doubt had already been planted and it had taken root. I couldn't shake the feeling that it was true. That Amanda was betraying me. So I did something I never thought I was capable of. I followed her. I watched her leave the house that evening, dressed in a way I hadn't seen her dress in years, a tight black dress, high heels, her hair perfectly styled. She looked beautiful, and it broke my heart. I followed her in my car, keeping a safe distance, my hands gripping the steering wheel so tight my knuckles turned white. She drove straight to the Sunset Motel, a seedy place on the outskirts of town. I parked across the street, my heart pounding in my chest. I watched her get out of the car and walk towards the motel, her hips swaying. I felt sick to my stomach. That's when I saw him. Michael, 48, our neighbor. The guy who always borrowed my tools, who always had a friendly smile and a wave. The guy I considered a friend. He was waiting for her outside room 14. They embraced, kissed, and then disappeared inside. I sat there for what felt like an eternity, the rain pouring down, the world blurring around me. I couldn't breathe, I couldn't think, I was numb. Then slowly the numbness turned to rage, a white-hot, all-consuming rage. I got out of the car, walked across the street, and stood outside room 14. I could hear muffled voices inside, laughter. I wanted to kick the door down, to confront them, to scream and yell. But I didn't. I just stood there, paralyzed by pain and disbelief. Finally, after what seemed like hours, I knocked. Softly at first, then louder, more insistent. The voices inside stopped. There was a moment of silence, then the door creaked open. Amanda stood there, her face flushed, her hair disheveled. Michael was behind her, shirtless, his eyes wide with panic. "John," Amanda stammered, her voice trembling. "What are you doing here?" I didn't say anything. I just looked at her, at them. The betrayal in her eyes, the guilt in his. It was all there, plain as day. I can explain," she said, reaching out to me. But I recoiled as if her touch would burn me. "Explain what, Amanda?" I said, my voice barely a whisper. "Explain how you could do this to me, to us." She started to cry, tears streaming down her face. "It just happened," she sobbed. "It was a mistake." "Mistake?" I repeated, my voice rising. "This was no mistake, Amanda. This was a deliberate act of betrayal. You lied to me, you deceived me, you broke my heart." I turned to Michael. "And you," I said, my voice dripping with contempt. "I thought you were my friend. How could you do this?" He didn't say anything. He just stood there looking ashamed. "Out," I said to Amanda, my voice shaking with anger. "Get out of my life. I never want to see you again." She begged me to forgive her, to give her another chance. She promised it would never happen again. But I didn't believe her. The trust was gone, shattered into a million pieces. I walked away, leaving her standing there in the doorway, crying. I drove home, the rain still pouring down, the world a blur of lights and shadows. I went inside, poured myself a drink, and sat in the dark, staring at the wall. My life, my marriage, everything I thought I knew was gone, destroyed in an instant. The next few weeks were a blur of lawyers, paperwork, and endless tears. Amanda moved out, and the house felt empty, cold, and silent. Max, my dog, was the only one who seemed to understand what I was going through. He stayed by my side, offering silent comfort. The divorce was finalized quickly. Amanda didn't fight it. She knew she was in the wrong. She ended up moving in with Michael, much to the dismay of the rest of the neighborhood. I tried to move on, to rebuild my life. I threw myself into my work, spent time with friends, and even tried dating. But it was hard. The pain of the betrayal was still raw, the scars still fresh. Then one day, about 6 months after the divorce, I got a phone call from Sarah, 39, Amanda's best friend. She had been out of town when everything happened, and she had just heard the full story. "John," she said, her voice filled with remorse, "I am so sorry for what happened to you. Amanda was wrong, and Michael was even worse. I feel terrible that I didn't see it coming." I thanked her for her kind words, but I could tell there was something else she wanted to say. "There's something you should know," she said hesitantly. "Something that Amanda never told you." My heart skipped a beat. "What is it?" I asked, bracing myself for the worst. "Amanda, she's been having affairs for years," Sarah said, her voice barely above a whisper. "Michael wasn't the first. There were others, many others." I was stunned. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. "Years," I repeated, my voice trembling. "How many?" "I don't know the exact number," Sarah said, "but it's been going on for a long time. She's good at hiding it. She's a master manipulator." I felt a wave of nausea wash over me. All those years, all those lies, all those betrayals, I had been living a lie. My entire marriage had been a sham. "Why are you telling me this?" I asked, my voice filled with bitterness. "Because you deserve to know the truth," Sarah said. "You deserve to know what kind of person Amanda really is. And because I feel guilty. I knew something was going on, but I didn't want to believe it. I didn't want to hurt you." I thanked Sarah for her honesty, and we hung up. I sat there for a long time, trying to process what I had just learned. The pain was still there, but it was different now. It was mixed with anger, resentment, and a sense of profound betrayal. I realized that I had been a fool. I had been blind to the truth, too trusting, too willing to believe Amanda's lies. I had allowed her to manipulate me, to take advantage of me. But I wasn't going to let her get away with it. I wasn't going to let her destroy my life. I decided to take action. I contacted a private investigator and hired him to dig into Amanda's past. I wanted to know everything about her, every lie she had told, every affair she had had. It took a few weeks, but the investigator came back with a report that was even more shocking than I had imagined. Amanda had been having affairs since the early years of our marriage. She had used me for my money, my security, and my social status. She had even been secretly draining our joint bank account, transferring money to an offshore account in her name. She had been planning to leave me for years, and she had been carefully building her escape fund. I was furious. I felt like I had been stabbed in the back, betrayed in the worst possible way. I decided to use this information to my advantage. I contacted my lawyer and filed a new lawsuit against Amanda, accusing her of fraud and embezzlement. I presented the evidence to the court, and Amanda was forced to admit her guilt. The judge ordered her to return all the stolen money, plus pay a hefty fine. She was also publicly shamed, her reputation ruined. Michael, too, faced consequences. His wife, Emily, 35, found out about the affair and divorced him. He lost his job, his house, and his friends. He became a pariah in the community. Amanda and Michael ended up moving to another state, where they lived in a small apartment, struggling to make ends meet. Their relationship quickly deteriorated, and they eventually broke up. Amanda was left alone with nothing and no one. I, on the other hand, started to heal. I sold the house in Denver and moved to a small town in the mountains. I bought a cabin, adopted another dog, and started a new life. I focused on my work, my hobbies, and my friends. I learned a valuable lesson about trust, betrayal, and the importance of standing up for yourself. I realized that I was stronger than I thought, and that I could survive anything, even the most devastating heartbreak. I eventually met someone new, Olivia, 46, a kind and compassionate woman who loved me for who I was. We got married and lived happily ever after. Amanda's betrayal was a dark chapter in my life, but it was also a turning point. It forced me to confront my own vulnerabilities, to learn from my mistakes, and to become a better version of myself. And for that I am grateful, not to Amanda, of course, but to the experience itself. It taught me that even in the face of unimaginable pain, there is always hope for a brighter future. It taught me that love is not always enough, but that self-respect is essential. And it taught me that sometimes the best revenge is simply moving on and living a happy, fulfilling life. The rain stopped that night, and eventually the sun came out, and so did I.